So the new level 25 dungeons are live, we have the new missions, we have the new champion Ramantu Drake's Blood, but what about the new champions you're going to need to work on to be able to complete these new dungeons? So what I have for you guys today is 15, maybe even more epics that I think are extra valuable with this new patch. Let's go check them out. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to cover each of the 4 dungeons real quick. We're going to use some examples. I will talk about some champions that I have used already, other champions that I think you could potentially use. So I certainly do not have all of them built is what I'm saying. Instead, we're going to use the index to do this. And eventually I will hopefully have some dedicated build videos for you guys. So let's start with the first one, the Ice Golem 25 with 2 champions in here, well-known champions. Seer continues to be absolutely insane for this, and we have also Mausoleum Mage. So let me quickly talk about Seer for her Karma Burn. So I was talking with Stu Gaming a little bit yesterday on his stream. He did say that for like 240% crit damage with a Savage set and 5 buffs, decrease defense and weaken, this is still enough to one-shot the waves. Now I built mine a little bit differently. I went with 280% crit damage but not Savage gear so that I can keep doing my hard Doom Tower on almost full auto, but I still think you need 5 debuffs, decrease defense, and weaken for her to work properly. Mausoleum Mage we've talked about many times before. He continues to be really solid for this. I in fact used him against another dungeon as well, which was the Spider 25. Sorry, not Spider, but the Dragon 25. We really like this buff right here, again, to power up a Seer, but that's not the only thing we like him for. We also love this here, the ability to remove all debuffs from all allies, then heal them. On top of that, you get a turn meter increase. Guys, this is really solid. So that is one potential team, but then here's another Ice Golem 25 team with no legendaries that I did yesterday, and that is with these champions right here. So there is a couple to cover in those, so let's get going with first Achok the Windarin. I've always wanted to use Achok the Windarin for something, and I think that now I finally have a use for him, or a little bit more than just the Frost Spider. This skill right here, basically it's an AoE freeze. It's not really the HP burn, but you also want AoE HP burn with this champion because of the way his passive whatever, I still don't know if it's a girl or a guy, but this is the great thing about this champion, the passive right here. So you basically heal, but more importantly, you get turn meter increase when all the affected enemies get a turn while under a freeze debuff. So great for Spider 25 as well, as you guys will see in a second, but also for Ice Golem. The next one to talk about in that run is Mordecai. This guy is a game changer. If you have Ultimate Gaelic, that is one thing, but Mordecai has a higher success rate of applying the AoE HP burn, especially on all of those spiderlings. So if you don't have Tyrant Elixir or anything of the sort, I think that this guy is now your go-to. He does also have some turn meter control on the second skill right here, and then a little bit more turn meter control on the A1, not to mention an accuracy aura if ever you're a little bit short on that. That run also had a trusty Padma in there, mainly for the AoE decrease attack A1, right? I think that is absolutely amazing, especially when you're fighting the Ice Golem, where your champions will most likely go for the ads first and not the boss. So I think this is really clutch. Also, decreased accuracy is fantastic to hopefully prevent you being debuffed from those mobs. So she certainly has a new place in my roster. I also use her for Iragoth, hard Doom Tower, floor 120. Rector Draft is another champion well built for the Ice Golem 25. Not just that, in fact, she's probably really good for the Dragon 25 as well. So Ice Golem and Dragon, she has a decreased attack on her A1, so that's already pretty good. But we have a whole lot of heals from her, as well as the Perfect Veil to help us survive a little bit more. Much like Mausoleum Mage has the increased defense to also help us survive. And then we even have a revive here, which I think is really important. And we even have a aura for resistance for the Doom Tower, which he can also be really useful in there. The next champion to talk about is not a new champion. We've heard of him before, and he used to be a go-to champion for the AoE poison explosion, right? Like Xavier and Eleanor, if I'm not mistaken. So this champion, though, is still pretty clutch for all those poison debuffs, and it is great to deal with the waves, but also the Ice Golem boss specifically. So on the test server, I was able to build him real quick last night. We took him for a spin, and that is how you see this run right here. So this is like 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It certainly isn't the fastest team, but guys, if you're out of luck for the legendaries and you just want to do it on auto, this is certainly a team that you guys can handle perhaps a little bit better. And to further support some of these champions, here are 2 examples for you guys of some of these epics and a 3-man team. Ice Golem 25 on full auto. So if you have Drexstar, then you're already looking pretty good. Of course, here Battle Alcazar is pretty clutch for this, but here's another example with Battle Alcazar, Drexstar, and Mausoleum Mage. Same time. That's kind of funny. 4 minutes and 18 seconds, 4 minutes and 18 seconds for both of these 3-man runs. And like I just mentioned, that's not the only thing some of these champions can do. Here is my fastest run of the Spider's Den 25 with 2 of those epics, Achok the Windarin and Mordecai, which are absolutely amazing for this. Seeing all of those procs for the HP burn and the freezes go, and with the passive of Achok the Windarin, is really nice to see. But then here's another champion that you guys could use for the Spider 25, and this is a not perhaps well-known champion, or should I say it's a champion that we don't use all that much, but somebody just sent this to me, which has Tyrant Elixir, but Ursine Ironhide. So the Black Bear here with his AoE decreased attack might actually be pretty useful for this, and so this will help mitigate some of the damage if you end up taking a hit or 2. But this guy also has a form of turn meter control on the A1, and I think that's the whole point basically of never letting the Spider Queen take a turn. All right, now we're going to switch gears here a little bit. We're going to talk about the Fire Knight 25. So I was able to get it done with this team right here, which was relatively safe, maybe a little bit slower because we don't really reset the skills for the second wave. But in here, we still have our Seer Mausoleum Mage. But of course, Allure continues to be one of the best champions in the game for the Fire Knight. On top of that, she is now strong affinity, if I recall correctly, so even better. In this case, I used 2. The boss never took a turn, but the issue was, like I said, the waves. So this is the skill we really want right here. Decrease the turn meter by 25% on each critical hit, 3 times at random, but when you're against the boss, that's the only one you're going to hit anyway. And the great thing about Allure is that you do not need to do her skills. Here's a quick note, however, on my fastest Fire Knight 25 team so far. I did remove one of the allures. I removed the Mausoleum Mage. I reset the skills with a Renegade. I brought in more buffs with Krila Witch Arm. It could be other champions. In fact, it's going to lead me to another one in a second here. But this basically is safer for the waves, a little bit riskier for the boss itself. So instead of Krila Witch Arm, you could definitely use instead another champion that will bring in 2 buffs, and that will also have some turn meter control on the A1, and that champion is Lightsworn. So if you have Lightsworn, fantastic. You can go ahead and book this guy. You will get this to a 4-turn cooldown, and then you also have a triple hit A1 with a turn meter reduction. It might be just enough for you guys to take that Fire Knight down. For this next champion, I'll give a quick shout out to Stu Gaming for showing us this build right here. I think this is fresh, so he tried it on stream. We have our lure, we have one Cold Heart, but then we have Apothecary and Salad Drakes for our survivability. But then we see a Tyrell. So Tyrell got reworked a little bit for the clan boss, but the great thing about him is that he does have a double hit A2 and also a decreased defense and a 50% turn meter reduction on his A3. So I think that Tyrell might actually be a really solid choice for the Fire Knight now. Switching dungeons again, now we're going to talk about the Dragon's Lair 25. This is my fastest run on the test server so far with our Seer, Lydia, and Renegade combo. Mausoleum Mage is again needed for those extra buffs so I can nuke those waves. But then we see our trusty Occult Brawler, which is a good poisoner by himself. I think he's one of the better poisoners if you have a Battle Alcazar in your clan boss team, because the other ones just plays too many. But Occult Brawler here is now pretty good for the Fire Knight 25 as well. I think he is, if I'm not mistaken, strong affinity now, and with the ability to place poisons on the passive, he can also be somewhat useful for the Ice Golem, even though there I think he's weak affinity. But then you might not just get as many poisons off of the A1. I still think though that Taurus with the AoE poison is a little bit better for Ice Golem, but still, if you guys aren't using Occult Brawler for anything else, he might be your dedicated poisoner for the dragon now. Here we have another example of Dragon 25 with accessible champions in a sense, with a Drexstar. We have a Stag Knight, Rector Drath, Farrakhan, and a Belor. This comes from scratch, so huge shout out to him for showing us this build right here. So in here we see a Stag Knight, and we're going to cover him in a second, but that also brings up another potential champion to take his place, which would be Grush the Mangler, right? So the ability to place that AoE decreased attack will certainly be very useful for the Dragon if you plan on taking a couple of hits, and if you have good survivability or even the leech debuff, that potentially means you surviving a little bit longer. Then we see that Rector Drath, and we also see Farrakhan the Fat for the allies joint attack. So let's quickly go over his kit right here. So that's basically what we really want, but he also brings the HP burn and the poison, which is great, as well as decreased defense on the A1. All right, so between either him and Grush the Mangler, I think you have a pretty solid combo, and again, the allies joint attack. But that also makes me think of another champion worth mentioning here, and that will be the Fane. So Fane, kind of the same concept here. We would have decreased attack, we would have poison, and we would have the decreased defense and the weaken. I think that would be absolutely amazing for Dragon 25. Now here's the Stag Knight we were talking about. So that AoE decreased defense and the decreased attack, not to mention a double hit A1 with the decreased speed, so that is always very useful. We also have the passive here for increased accuracy. There's probably even more. Again, I do think that maybe Lodric Falconheart here might be also pretty interesting with the decreased attack, the ally protection, and also the shield buff. Deacon Armstrong, I'm thinking, might also be pretty useful with the decreased defense, fills the turn meter. That's always very valuable. There are at least two other epics I think we should talk about. Number one being a Vogoth. So this champion has recently been one of the most sought after epics in the game, mainly for the arena, but I think he's also going to be really fantastic for, let's say, the Ice Golem. Number one, we also have that 50% decreased attack, namely, and we also sort of like place the leech as well as provoke. So helping to control those adds is certainly always a great thing to add. So Vogoth should definitely be on your radar if you haven't built him already. And then the other one, of course, is going to be the other accessible HP burn champion if you don't have Mordecai, and it is going to be Ultimate Gaelic. So perhaps as you're scaling to level 25 for, let's say, the Ice Golem or the Spider, you might want to work with Ultimate Gaelic instead of Mordecai. All right, so there you have it, guys, a quick rundown of some of the new epic, not new, but like some of the epic champions that I think are extra valuable now with the level 25 dungeons. So if you don't have all those fancy legendaries, perhaps you can work with those. Do let me know in the comments below which one did I miss. I know there is more, but these are just the 15 or so that came to mind for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.